Yo, what's up guys? My name is JT. Is this the ultimate SD70ACe from Broadway Limited? Well, we're going to figure that out right here on Model Reverend Southwest. So this is the brand new SD70ACe from Broadway Limited. This is an all new model for them. It is made completely of die cast metal. It is very heavy. I can feel it already in the box. Now we're going to see how that stacks up against the Athearn Genesis SD70ACe. Now both of these are the same road number, 9096. Now, you're probably kind of wondering why I got both the same road number, and that is because I want to see the differences and the similarities between both of these models. If you guys know the significance between 9096 or of 9096, you'll know that this was used in the Bush funeral train way back when they transported his body to his final resting place. So we're going to see which one is superior to the other. I have no idea. I have not looked at this model just yet. I know exactly what the Athearn Genesis looks like, and I know their quality. So we're going to see what the difference is between the both of them. So let's get started. So here we have the engine on the workbench. So let's go ahead and open it up. This is a nice box, nice graphics, and it's sturdy, well constructed. In here you'll find a flyer for the Conductors Club. Inside you'll also find another flyer. I still don't know which I'm going to order yet. I am a part of the Conductors Club. It's a really good deal, guys. If you guys haven't been a part of it, you guys should really give it a shot. You can see right here there is a Paragon 4 locomotive for $199, which you cannot beat. That's a very good price. For only $30 a year, that's a really good deal. So this engine is supplied, or it is equipped with a smoke unit. Please follow the instructions on this. You really don't want to mess up that smoke unit. Don't run it without smoke fluid. That is the first thing that says on here. Don't do that. You will ruin it quicker than you can think. Over here is also the owner's manual. Lots of information in this. You'll find it filled with DCC information and everything else you need to run this engine. I really like that Broadway Limited has gone back to the foam. I like that. I don't like that it's just on the other boxes. It's just plastic holding it all together. This is going to keep your model safe during transport and during shipping. I really like that. So here's the engine. Let's go ahead and pull that out. It's really stuffed in there. Here it is. It comes in this clamshell packaging that you'd find with Broadway Limited these days. Let's go ahead and pull this out if we can. As I'm trying to pull this out, I want to point out, please follow the instructions on this as well. Don't put it on the track when there's track power, especially with steam locomotives. You will do some damage. I'm serious. I've seen it happen before. So let's try to pull this out. It is really, really tight in there. So go ahead and put those parts down. Put those off to the side there. And here we have it. As I can see right here, there is a small pipette. Now this is used to add the smoke unit or smoke fluid to the unit. You really want to use this. You don't want to just drop fluid down the exhaust stack, because that's where you add the fluid. You really want to use this thing. You don't want to pour smoke fluid all over your engine and make it look like a mess. And there it is. Let's go ahead and remove this packaging. I'm telling you guys right now, this thing is so heavy. Like I said earlier, it is made out of die cast metal. Everything is pretty heavy and well made. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of the foam from the engine and we'll take a better look. So here we have it. We have the model sitting right in front of us. It's looking really good. Let's take a closer look. I'm going to zoom in on the cab of the engine and we'll look at the details on that. So here we have a view of the cab. I want to bring your attention to the number boards. Those are nice and crisp and they look pretty nice. They're also lit with LEDs. Speaking of LEDs, every light on this model is an LED light. Inside the cab there is an LED light that turns on when the engine is started, and also it turns off when you increase the throttle and the engine starts moving. As we're looking at the front of the cab, you'll notice that the windshields are nicely done as well, with gaskets all around the windshields, which gives it a more prototypical look. Now on the windshields, you can see that there are some intricately done windshield wipers as well. Now, you'll notice all around the top and in the front, there are some grab irons, and those are made out of brass, and they look nice and sturdy. Now, if you take a look at the front, you'll find that there is a nicely done headlight, and you can see that there is some detail on the headlight as well for bolts and such. Now, on the nose of the model, you'll see that there is a door there. There is not a separately applied handle, but it still looks good. Now, you'll notice that the handrails are nice looking as well. They are actually made out of wire, and they do not really bend much, and they look really nicely done. Now, you'll look at the chain in between the two handrails. That is a real chain. It does move. You can see that right there. Now, if you take your view and look at the ditch lights, you'll see that those are nice, and they're not incredibly bulky as some other models are. They're pretty standard and prototypical looking. Now, if you bring your attention down to the pilot, you'll notice that there is a nicely done plow, and also there's MU hoses there as well. The MU hoses appear to be plastic, and they move a little bit, so they don't look like they're going to break if you were to touch them. Now, underneath the pilot, you'll find that there's a coupler cut bar there as well. And there is a nice metal coupler in the front as well. So let's go take a look at the side of the model. So as we look at the conductor's side of the cab, you can see that there is a separately applied sun visor and also a mirror. Those windows look pretty good as well. They look kind of thick, and so does the actual cab itself. You can see the thickness of the cab. Now, that's what I want to start to talk about. This model is die cast. Now, you got to take into consideration how die cast models are made and how thick the metal is on those in order to be produced, and in order to not have any problems with production and all that stuff. So that being said, I want to mention that none of these grills are separately applied. The Athearn model does have separately applied etched metal grills on the side of the model in this area right here. Now, we'll look at that a little bit later when we do the comparison, but I just wanted to point that out. None of these grills are separately applied. They're all molded in. So all of these details as well are molded into the die cast metal. Now, that is pretty much the same for any other plastic model, but I just wanted to point that out, that they're all molded into the actual die cast shell. If we take a look down at the trucks, you can see that they're nicely done. There's a decent amount of detail in them. I can see that there's some stuff that is missing from the Athearn model. I'm looking at that to the left of me as I'm looking at this model right now. It feels like there's stuff missing from underneath the shell. From underneath the sill of the model. You could just see that there's a difference. Now, if we take a look at the handrails here, those are brass wire as well. Very nicely done. They're not wavy and they're not bent. They are well made and well constructed. So let's take a look at closer down the model. So as we take a look at the long hood, I want to talk about the lift rings. Now, I cannot tell whether those lift rings are actually molded in or they're separately applied. I really want to say that they're separately applied. They look intricate enough and they don't look bulky enough to look like they're molded in. I think there's a few of them that are molded into the model. Taking a look at up here, I'm not sure if you can see those really in the video right now. We'll look at those later. I think those ones are molded in, but I think the smaller ones here, I think those are separately applied. Now, as we look at the long hood again, if we take a look at the door detail, I really want to say that the detail's not as crisp as you would find on a plastic model. Now, I know that this is die cast, right? And I know how the die cast models are designed and built. Like, I have a ton of die cast cars and stuff, and I know that it's not incredibly crisp and it's not perfect. I'm just saying I don't think that the detail is pronounced and as crisp as you would find on a plastic model. It looks good nonetheless. So I'm not saying anything bad about this model. I'm just pointing that out. Now, underneath the sill, you'll find that there is a lot of molded in piping, and also you'll find that there is the filler gauge for the diesel and also the lid or the cap for the tank, and also there is the automatic shutoff, or not the automatic shutoff, but the emergency shutoff for the diesel fuel supply to the engine in case of an emergency. So let's take a look at the radiator area. So as we take a look at this portion of the model, I want to point out that there is a separately applied etched metal grill in this area, and there's one behind this grill as well. They look pretty nice, and they're nice and intricately done. Now down here you'll notice that there is some detail underneath that sill as well. Down here you'll find the trucks have some decent detail on them as well, and also there's some molded in detail underneath the sill as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the rear of the model. So as we take a look at the rear of the model, we can see that there's a nicely done headlight there as well, a rear light. There are some nicely done grab irons. I want to point out that this area right here seems to be a door. I'm not exactly familiar with SD70ACes in person, so I don't know if that actually opens up, but it seems like it does because there are three molded in hinges there. But the screens, I want to point out that those are actually molded into the die-cast shell. They're not separately applied. Now underneath the anti-climber, you can see that there is a separately applied coupler cut bar. There are some MU hoses and the extra knuckle holders there as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other side. So as we take a look at this side, I want to point your direction over to that nicely done brake wheel. Looks pretty nice. As you can see, there's a ton of decals all over the model. Some are legible under magnification, some are not, but nonetheless they look good where they are. How many times are you going to walk up to one of these models and read them with magnifying glasses or magnifying glass? You're not. If we take a look at the trucks, they're nicely done as well. There's some good detail on those as well. Let's take a look at closer to the front of the model. Looking at the engineer's side of the cab on the rear, you'll notice that there is some nice detail on this rear door. There is a door handle along with a windshield wiper. There are some steps here that are nicely done. Those appear to be separately applied. I may be wrong. I'm not entirely sure. I can't see them all too well. I'm not sure if you can see it all too well, but there is a cab figure in the engineer's seat there. You may have seen it earlier when I showed you guys the cab light inside. I want to point out that there is another separately applied sun visor along with the mirror and another detail there as well. Now, I looked at this model through and through. I did not find any issues with the paint. There was no scrapes, no scratches, no anything wrong with it. All the paint is super crisp and it looks great. Along with all the numbers and everything, it just looks phenomenal. So let's go ahead and take a look at the roof of the model. Before we jump onto the top of the model, I want to point out the horn looks pretty good. You can look down into that trumpet. It's a little thick, a little bulky, but it looks good. Upon inspection of the roof of the model, you can see that this PTC antenna is done nicely. It's molded into the cab. There's no separately applied details on that whatsoever. Over here you can see that there is a small opening which should be able to be looked down through, which is a small little grill. Now we look over here to the exhaust. You can see you can look down in there, and you should, because that is where the smoke unit is. Now over here you can see that these radiator fans look nicely done. You can see that there are fans in there that are separately applied. One thing I want to point out, that these conduits leading to the fans are not separately applied and are molded into the model. This fan over here is not separately applied either. It is actually molded into the model as well. There are a few lift rings here as well. I think those are the ones that are actually molded into the model. There are others that I think that are actually separately applied, like I mentioned earlier. So let's go ahead and put both of these models together, the Athearn and the Broadway Limited, and see how they look. So here we have both models sitting side by side. Athearn Genesis on the right, BLI on the left. Now the first thing that I noticed that was much different than each model was that the gray on the BLI unit is much darker than the Athearn unit. The next thing that I noticed, that there's not a recording camera on the BLI unit. You can see that there's the camera there, and then there is no camera on that one as well. The windshield wipers are much more intricate on the Athearn version. So are the grab irons. The grab irons are much thinner on the Athearn version compared to the BLI. Now, I noticed that the handrails are much thinner on the Athearn unit as well than the BLI unit. I do sort of prefer the metal wire grab irons or the handrails on the BLI unit. I think they're just less prone to being broken and they're just more sturdy. Now, another thing I wanted to point out was the ditch lights on the Athearn version are much smaller and a little more prototypical looking than the ones on the BLI unit. Also, there's a few details missing from the area underneath the anti-climber on the BLI unit. You can see that there is that little part down there underneath the anti-climber that's actually missing. And also there is this hose that's missing as well from the Broadway Limited unit. Now, I think I like that the Athearn version does have the more details. Like, who's not going to like more details on the model? But nonetheless, they still look good from the front. Now, I also wanted to point out that there are some little decals that are over the hoses down there that are missing from the Broadway Limited unit. So let's go ahead and take a look at the side. So as we look at the undersill detail between both models, I want to say that Athearn takes it on this one as well. There's a little bit more detail on the undersill of the Athearn. As you can see, there is just a little bit more compared to the BLI unit. And also goes for the trucks as well. Here is the sanding line right here. The BLI does not have that. And I feel like the detail on the trucks itself are just more detailed compared to the Broadway Limited. Now, earlier I mentioned that there were no separately applied etched metal grills on the BLI unit. You can see that these are actually just molded in to the shell. These are separately applied on the Athearn version. As we take a look at the rear of the model, I wanted to point out both of these etched metal grills that are separately applied. Now, the one on the Broadway Limited is completely different than that on the Athearn. The design of the mesh is much different. And if we look at the grills here, you can see through the one on the Broadway Limited more so than you can see on the Athearn Genesis. Also, the grab irons on the Broadway Limited are a little more chunky. As you can see, those on the Athearn a little more refined and a little more delicate. Another thing I wanted to point out is that the grills here, as I said earlier, are actually molded into the die cast. These appear to be separately applied. They both look good nonetheless. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the other side. On this side of the rear of the model, you can see that the brake wheel is, like I said, with the grab irons, more chunkier on the Broadway Limited. The one on the Athearn is more refined and just a little more intricately done. Now, another thing I wanted to point out is you can probably see the grill design difference from the Broadway Limited to the Athearn version. You can see down there as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the front of the cab areas. In this shot, we can actually see the differences between the plastic shell and the die cast shell. Now, both of these are isolated cabs, as you can see. You can see the isolation on the Athearn unit much more than you can see on the Broadway Limited, as you can see right there. Another thing I wanted to point out is that the windows on the Athearn version are tinted. Those on the Broadway Limited are not. Now, they both look pretty good from this angle, but like I said earlier, you can really see the difference in the detail compared to the die cast to the plastic model. Let's go ahead and take a look at the roof. So as we take a look at the roofs of each model, you can see that the PTC antenna on the Athearn version is a little more delicate compared to that of the molded in one on the Broadway Limited. Another thing I wanted to point out is that the grille here is see-through compared to that of the molded in one on the Broadway Limited. Both exhausts look slightly different, as you can see there. Both horns look pretty good. Broadway Limited a little more chunkier. As you can see that these radiator fans both have separately applied fans inside of them. One big thing I wanted to point out is that the conduit on either model are different. You can see that the Athearn version has separately applied conduit compared to that of the molded in one on the Broadway Limited. Both have slightly different grills. Now, the one on the Broadway Limited is molded in, but then the one on the Athearn version is a separately applied etched metal grill. So as we take a look at the underside of each model, I want to say there's really not much of a difference. It's not like the Broadway Limited has a super detailed truck underneath. The Athearn Genesis does not. The big difference is that the Broadway Limited does have two speakers underneath where the fuel tank is. I believe that the Athearn Genesis has two Sugar Cube speakers inside the long hood of the model. Now, despite all the differences between both manufacturers, I think that both manufacturers executed the SD70ACe very well in their own way. Now, the Athearn Genesis model is just a gorgeous, well-detailed, just nicely done model. Beautiful model. On the other hand, I think that Broadway Limited did an amazing job on this model. I love this model. It's beautiful. It looks great. It's heavy. One thing that it does for me is it has this nostalgic feeling to me. Every time I pick it up, I feel like I'm holding a miniature Lionel Legacy SD70ACe. It's just this grand, big feeling to me when I hold this engine, and the sound of it. It just sounds so good. It reminds me, like I said, a Lionel SD70ACe. The horn is just amazing, beautiful, high-pitched, great sound. Now, I know it doesn't exactly sound like an SD70ACe horn, but it just has this sound to it that just, I love. The smoke on it is just amazing. I'll say it again. It just reminds me as if I'm holding an O-scale SD70ACe. It, like I said, has this nostalgic feeling to it. That's why I love the brand new Broadway Limited SD70ACe. And if you concur with me, put it in a comment down below. And if you disagree, say whatever you want to say. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. That's pretty much it for the video. There's a ton more content coming in the future. Now that all these pre-orders are coming in, this was incredibly out there. I did not know this thing was going to come in right now. I told you guys in another video, I thought it was going to come like in January. Well, got the pre-order notification and it was here. So, like I said, that's pretty much it, guys. Talk later. Take care and keep it between the rails.